At my daughter's 17th birthday, my own sister smashed her brand new iPhone and then called the cops on her. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Haley, and I've been raising my daughter Aria on my own since she was little. It hasn't been easy, but everything I do for her. She's a bright, kind, and hardworking girl who never gives me any trouble. While other teens get caught up in drama, Aria spends her time studying, reading, and helping me around the house. She's the kind of daughter every mom hopes for, and I've always promised myself that I'd make her feel valued, even if I couldn't give her everything in the world. For months, I saved every spare dollar I could. I cut corners, skipped buying things for myself, and even picked up extra shifts at work, all for one goal: to surprise Aria with a brand new iPhone for her birthday. It wasn't about the phone itself. It was about giving her something she had wanted for years, something that showed her how much I noticed her effort and how proud I was of her. When her birthday came, I wanted the day to be special. We didn't plan a big flashy party. That's not who we are. Instead, I set up a cozy little gathering at home. A few relatives came by, we decorated with balloons, and I baked a cake myself. It was small but warm, the kind of celebration that's filled with love rather than money. Among the guests was my sister, Laura. Now, Laura has always been difficult. Growing up, she competed with me over everything: grades, friends, attention from our parents. That rivalry never seemed to go away, even as adults. She has a sharp tongue and a way of making people feel small when she talks. I invited her because she's family, and despite everything, I thought she could put her attitude aside for Aria's sake. I was wrong. The moment Laura walked in, I could feel the tension. She made little comments under her breath, the kind that sound casual, but sting if you catch the meaning. When she saw the decorations, she smirked and said, "Well, isn't this cute? You really went all out for a kid's party." I bit my tongue. I didn't want to ruin Aria's day by engaging with her negativity. Aria, sweet as ever, greeted her aunt with a hug and a smile. But Laura barely returned the gesture. She scanned the room with that critical look she always has, as if she was measuring whether what I'd done was good enough. When she spotted the small gift table, she let out a little laugh. "You sure are setting her up to expect a lot," she said loud enough. I ignored it, focusing instead on Aria, who was buzzing with excitement. The night hadn't reached its main moment yet, the part one had been waiting for, the reveal of her gift. I kept thinking about the hours I had worked, the sacrifices I made, and the look that would be on her face when she opened the box. That moment mattered more to me than anything Laura could say. Still, Laura didn't stop. Every time Aria smiled or laughed, Laura found a way to bring her down with some sly remark. "She's 17, Haley. You don't want her growing up thinking life hands her everything." I clenched my jaw but stayed quiet. This was Aria's birthday, not a battlefield. I told myself that once Aria opened her gift, nothing else would matter. I imagined her joy drowning out all the bitterness in the room. I had no idea then that Laura wasn't just going to ruin the mood with words. She was about to cross a line I could never forgive. When the time finally came for Aria to open her present, my heart was beating faster than hers. I had wrapped the little box in silver paper with a bright ribbon, and I had kept it hidden until that moment. Everyone gathered in the living room, waiting to see what it was. Aria sat in the middle of the couch, her eyes shining with excitement. I handed her the box, and she looked at me like she already knew it was something special. She carefully peeled back the paper and lifted the lid. The second she saw the iPhone, her hands flew up to cover her mouth. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking, "are you serious?" I nodded, smiling, and that was it. She threw her arms around me, hugging me so tight I could hardly breathe. The family clapped and cheered, and I felt every late night at work and every sacrifice I'd made was worth it for this one moment. Aria was glowing with happiness. She pulled the phone out of the box, holding it like it was the most precious thing in the world. She kept saying thank you over and over, kissing my cheek, and I could see tears in her eyes. That reaction alone made the entire effort worthwhile. It wasn't about the phone. It was about her knowing she was loved and appreciated. But not everyone in the room shared that joy. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Laura's expression. She was clapping with the rest of them, but her smile was stiff, almost painful to watch. It wasn't real. It was the kind of smile people give when they're trying to hide the fact that they're burning inside. Beside her, her daughter Madison sat with her arms crossed, her lips pressed tight. At 16, Madison was used to being the center of attention at family gathering, and she clearly didn't like seeing Aria in the spotlight. Laura leaned back in her chair and said, "Wow, Haley, that's a lot for a teenager, don't you think?" Her voice was light, but there was no mistaking the edge behind it. My kid would never need something that expensive. The room got a little quieter. Some of the family glanced between us, but no one said anything. I felt my face heat up, but but I forced a smile and kept my mouth shut. This was Arya's moment, and I refused to let Laura ruin it. Arya, though, noticed. She looked at her aunt, then at me, confusion flickering across her face. She wasn't used to that kind of bitterness, at least not directed so openly. Arya tried to brush it off, focusing back on her phone, running her fingers over the screen as if it might disappear if she let go. But Laura wasn't done. She let out a little laugh and added, "You sure are setting the bar high, Haley. 17 years old, and already getting top-of-the-line gifts. What's she going to expect when she turns 18? A car?" Arya's smile faltered for a moment, but she forced herself to keep it. She glanced at me again, and I gave her a reassuring nod. I wanted her to stay happy, to focus on the love in that room instead of the poison leaking out of her aunt's mouth. Madison shifted in her seat, rolling her eyes as if she couldn't believe all the fuss was over a phone. She whispered something to her mother that made Laura chuckle, though I couldn't hear the words. Arya caught it too. Her shoulders stiffened, and she went quiet for a few seconds. She tried to pretend she wasn't bothered, but I knew her well enough to see the cracks in her smile. I kept my focus on Arya, clapping along with the rest of the family, hugging her again, and telling her how proud I was. But inside, I was already starting to feel uneasy. Laura wasn't just making snide remarks. There was something sharper behind her tone, something I couldn't quite name yet. The cake was set out on the table, candles glowing as everyone sang for Arya. She made a wish and blew them out, laughing as her friends and cousins clapped. Plates were passed around, frosting smeared on napkins, and the room buzzed with easy conversation. Arya sat with her new phone on her lap, carefully peeling away the plastic cover. Her hands moved quickly, excitement lighting up her face as she tapped through the setup screen. Every so often, she'd glance at me with a grin, like she couldn't believe it was really hers. She was halfway through putting in her passcode when it happened. Laura stood up from her chair, walked over, and without a word snatched the phone straight out of Arya's hand. The room froze. Arya blinked, stunned, her mouth opening but no sound coming out. My heart jumped into my throat. "Laura, what are you doing?" I demanded, standing up so fast my chair scraped the floor. "She doesn't need this," Laura snapped, holding the phone up like evidence in a trial. 17 years old, and you're giving her something like this? Ridiculous. Arya jumped to her feet, her voice trembling. "Give it back. That's mine." The room erupted into whispers, people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. No one expected this. I stepped forward, my hands shaking, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "Laura, that's enough. Hand it back to her right now." Instead of listening, she glared at me, her face twisted with anger. "You're spoiling her, Haley. You're raising a brat. Someone has to show her that life doesn't hand you shiny toys just because you want them. That's not your place." I shot back, my voice louder now. "This is her birthday. Give my daughter her phone." Arya's eyes were wide with panic. "Aunt Laura, please," she begged, her voice cracking. "Please don't." And then it happened. Laura's expression hardened, and in one sudden movement, she raised the phone high and slammed it down on the counter. The sharp crack of glass shattering rang through the room like a gunshot. The sound silenced everything. Conversation stopped. Forks froze in midair. All eyes turned to the counter, where the brand new iPhone now lay in pieces, its screen spiderwebbed with cracks. Arya let out a sound I'll never forget, half gasp, half sob, and collapsed back into her chair. Tears poured down her face as she buried her hands in her lap, her shoulders shaking. I couldn't move. I stood rooted to the floor, staring at the broken phone, unable to believe what had just happened. Hours of work, months of saving, all of it destroyed in a second. But worse than the money, worse than the object itself, was the look on my daughter's face, shattered, just like the phone. The room was silent, thick with shock. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The birthday joy that had filled the house moments before was gone, replaced by a heavy, suffocating tension. The party was over. Just like that. My voice broke the silence first. I pointed toward the door and shouted at Laura to get out of my house. My hands were shaking, my chest tight, but I meant every word. "You've done enough. Leave. Now." Laura didn't move. She stood there, chin raised, eyes blazing, gripping the edge of the counter like she owned the place. Instead of leaving, she raised her voice, throwing her anger at both of us. "You're pathetic, Haley. You've ruined that girl with your pity gifts. She's nothing but an ungrateful brat." Arya sobbed harder, her face red and wet with tears. She lifted her head, her voice hoarse but fierce. "I'm not a brat. You're just jealous. You hate me for no reason." That only poured fuel on the fire. Laura's voice rose to a screech. Listen to her, screaming at her elders. Disrespectful little girl, just like her mother. I stepped between them, my body trembling, trying to push Laura toward the door. "Enough! Get out, Laura. You are not welcome here anymore." She jerked her arm away from me and stormed toward the front door. For a brief second, I thought it was over. But then, standing on the porch, she pulled out her phone and began dialing. I froze, dread crawling up my spine. Arya wiped her face, confused. What is she doing? I watched in disbelief as Laura spoke loudly into the phone. Yes, officer, I'd like to report an assault. My niece attacked me at her birthday party. I'm outside right now. Please come quickly. The words hit me like ice water. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Arya gasped, her whole body shaking. She's lying. I didn't touch her. Neighbors peeked out from their windows, hearing Laura's raised voice on the porch. I grabbed Arya's shoulders, holding her close, whispering that I knew the truth, that none of this was her fault. Still, I could see terror in her eyes. Minutes later, the distant wail of sirens grew louder, cutting through the night. They were coming closer, fast. My stomach dropped. On the night that should have been filled with candles and laughter, flashing lights were about to park outside my home, on my daughter's 17th birthday. The flashing red and blue lights filled the front windows as two officers stepped inside. Their presence made the room feel even smaller, heavier. One of them asked everyone to calm down, and then began separating us. Arya and I were led to one side of the living room, while Laura stayed near the doorway with her arms crossed, playing the part of the wronged sister. The first officer spoke to Laura first. Her voice carried easily across the room. That girl lunged at me, she said, pointing a finger at Arya. She was screaming, waving her arms. I was afraid she was going to hit me. She even clutched her arm as if she'd been hurt. The act was almost convincing, but I knew every word was a lie. Arya's hands shook as she clung to me. When it was her turn to speak, her words came out broken and uneven. I didn't touch her. She grabbed my phone and broke it. I just told her to give it back. I never laid a hand on her. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she spoke, her voice small but desperate. I backed her up, my voice steady but tight. Officers, my daughter didn't attack anyone. Everyone here saw what happened. My sister destroyed Arya's phone in front of us all. She's lying because she doesn't want to admit what she did. The officers exchanged glances. One of them scribbled notes. The other kept his eyes on Laura, who sniffled as if she were the one who had been wronged. After a long silence, one of the officers sighed. Since a call was made and an accusation was filed, we have to write up a report. There won't be an arrest tonight, but this will go on record. Arya's shoulders sagged with relief that she wasn't being taken away, but the weight of those words still crushed her. A report. A mark against her on her birthday, for something she hadn't done. She buried her face in my arm, trembling. Laura finally stepped outside with the officers, her voice lower now, but the smirk she threw back at me as she walked away said everything. She had gotten what she wanted: attention, chaos, and the shame of turning Arya's special night into a nightmare. The door closed behind her, and the house felt hollow. The birthday was ruined, and the damage was deeper than a broken phone. The next morning, the phone started ringing. First it was my aunt, then a cousin, then my mother. Each call felt heavier than the last. Word had spread fast, faster than I thought possible. Everyone seemed to know something had happened at Arya's birthday, but the version they knew wasn't the truth. Laura had gotten to them first. She was spinning the story, painting herself as the victim. According to her, Arya had thrown a tantrum, screamed at her, and nearly hit her. She told them I had no control over my own daughter, that I was letting her grow up spoiled and wild. Hearing those words repeated back to me by my own family made me feel sick. Some relatives didn't even ask for my side. They went straight into scolding me. Haley, you've gone too far spoiling that girl. A 17-year-old should respect her elders. No wonder she snapped if you're giving her luxury gifts like that. Their voices carried judgment, and every call chipped away at me. I wanted to scream, to tell them what really happened, but most didn't want to listen. They had already chosen Laura's story over mine. Arya heard parts of the conversations, even though I tried to shield her. She sat on the couch, quiet, her face pale. When I hung up one call, she whispered, "Do they all think I'm a bad person?" Her eyes filled with tears, and my heart broke. She hadn't done anything wrong, yet she was being painted as some monster by the very people who should have been celebrating her birthday. I sat down beside her and pulled her close. "No, sweetheart," I told her firmly. "You're not the problem here. You didn't do anything to be ashamed of. This is Laura twisting things, and I'm not going to let her get away with it." Arya nodded, but I could see the weight pressing on her. The balloons were still hanging in the corner. The half-eaten cake sat on the counter, but none of it mattered anymore. Her birthday, the day I had hoped would be filled with joy, had become her worst memory. As I held her, my anger only grew. I had been betrayed by my own sister, and now she was turning the family against us. I promised Arya right then and there that I would make it right. I didn't know how yet, but I knew I wouldn't rest until Laura paid for what she had done. I waited a few days before going to see Laura. My anger hadn't cooled, but I needed to face her. I didn't want to argue in front of anyone else, so I asked her to meet me at her place. She opened the door with a smug look, like she had been waiting for me to show up. I got straight to the point. You owe Aria a phone. You smashed it, and you're going to pay for it. My voice was firm, but inside I was shaking. Laura laughed, actually laughed, as if I had told a joke. Maybe you shouldn't waste money on your spoiled kid next time. Then you wouldn't be in this mess. I clenched my fists. She's not spoiled, Laura. She works hard. She deserved that gift. And you had no right to take it from her. She tilted her head, smiling like a cat playing with a mouse. Well, maybe if she had shown a little respect, none of this would have happened. But no, she thinks the world revolves around her because you let it. I took a deep breath, trying not to lose control. I want the money for the phone, or I'll take this further. You can't just break something that doesn't belong to you and walk away. Her eyes narrowed. Oh, you think you can scare me? Be careful, Haley. I could still press charges. That girl of yours screamed at me, and the police already have a record of it. If you don't back off, I'll make sure she has more than a little note on file. I'll make sure she regrets ever raising her voice to me. Hearing her talk about my daughter like that lit a fire inside me. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't a petty fight. This was malicious. She wanted to hurt Aria, not just emotionally, but in a way that could follow her for years. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just stared at her, realizing that the sister I grew up with no longer existed. Whatever bond we once had was gone. She had crossed a line that could never be repaired. That night, back at home, I sat awake long after Aria went to bed. I kept replaying Laura's smirk, her cruel words, and her threats. She thought she had won, that I would back down like I always had. But this time was different. I wasn't going to let her walk away unpunished. I decided then and there, I was going to fight back, and I was going to make sure she regretted everything she had done. I knew I couldn't just rely on anger. If I wanted to stop Laura, I needed to be smart. So I started gathering everything I could. The smashed phone was still in the drawer where I had placed it the night it happened. I took clear photos of the broken pieces from every angle. I also saved the few text messages Laura had sent in the past where she insulted Aria, calling her spoiled and lazy. They didn't look like much on their own, but together, they painted a picture of the way she treated us. I reached out to the people who had been at the party. Some were hesitant at first, not wanting to get involved in family drama, but slowly, a few admitted what they saw, that Laura had grabbed the phone and destroyed it. Their words gave me hope. I wasn't alone in this fight, and the truth was on my side. With everything I had, I made an appointment with a lawyer. I explained the situation, not just the broken phone, but the humiliation, the false police report, and the threats. The lawyer listened carefully, nodding as I showed him the evidence. This isn't just about replacing a phone, he said. This is about accountability. That was exactly what I needed. At the same time, I began calling relatives one by one. Instead of shouting or crying, I stayed calm. I told them exactly what happened and shared the proof I had. A few were surprised, some embarrassed for believing Laura so quickly. Bit by bit, her version of the story began to crack. Then something unexpected happened. Madison, Laura's daughter, reached out to Aria in secret. She told her that she was sorry for what happened and admitted that her mom had always been controlling and manipulative. Madison confessed she often felt trapped, forced to take her mom's side even when she didn't agree. Aria showed me the messages, and my heart ached for her. For the first time, I saw a bigger picture. This wasn't just about my daughter anymore. Laura's cruelty had been poisoning both girls. If I followed through, maybe I could free Madison from her grip too. This fight wasn't only for Aria's dignity. It was a chance to end Laura's control once and for all. The first real step I took was filing for a restraining order. I couldn't let Laura get close to Aria again, not after the threats she had made. Just signing the papers made my hands shake. But once it was done, I felt a strange relief. For the first time since the birthday, I felt like I was taking control back. The mediation came not long after. We sat in a small room, each of us on opposite sides of the table, with our lawyers between us. Laura walked in with that same smirk she always wore, confident that she could twist the story her way again. But this time I had more than just words. My lawyer spread out the photos of the smashed phone, copies of the nasty messages Laura had sent, and written statements from people who were at the party. Piece by piece, the truth came to light. The mediator asked Laura to respond, but her explanations kept changing. One moment she said Aria had been out of control. The next she claimed she was only teaching her a lesson. Every word dug her deeper. I sat quietly, letting the evidence do the work. Watching her stumble was almost surreal. For once, her lies didn't carry weight. They were collapsing in front of her. The fallout spread quickly. The same relatives who had called me to scold me now reached out with apologies. They admitted they had believed her too quickly. Some even cut off contact with her completely after hearing the truth. The grip she had on the family was slipping, and I could see how much that stung her. The biggest blow came from Madison. She had been quiet during most of it, but afterward she told the mediator she wanted to live with her father. She couldn't handle her mother's controlling ways anymore. Laura's face turned pale at those words. Losing her daughter's loyalty was something she hadn't expected, and she sat frozen, unable to argue. When we left that room, Arya held my hand tightly. She looked lighter, like a weight had been lifted. "It's over, isn't it?" she asked softly. I nodded, brushing her hair back from her face. "It's over. She can't hurt you anymore." For the first time in weeks, Arya smiled without forcing it. She finally felt safe again, and she knew I had fought with everything I had to protect her. That smile was worth every sleepless night and every painful step it took to get there. When the case was settled, Laura was ordered to pay damages for what she had done. The money didn't erase the pain she caused, but it gave me a chance to turn something ugly into something good. With part of it, I went to the store and bought Arya an even newer, upgraded iPhone. I handed it to her one evening, and the look on her face said everything. This time, the gift didn't just represent hard work or sacrifice. It was proof that her aunt's cruelty hadn't won. Arya laughed through tears, holding the phone close like a symbol of victory. Life slowly began to settle again. Months passed, and Arya focused on school, determined to put the nightmare behind her. When graduation arrived, the house was once again filled with family. Relatives who had once doubted us now stood proudly by her side, clapping and cheering as she walked across the stage. But one person wasn't there. Laura's absence hung in the air, but not as a shadow, more like fresh air after a storm. We didn't miss her. We didn't need her. After the ceremony, relatives gathered at our home for food and celebration. Arya beamed, surrounded by love, her laughter filling the space where tears had once been. I watched her move from one group to another, confident and glowing, and I knew she had grown stronger from everything we had endured. As for me, I had made a final choice. Laura was no longer a part of our lives. I blocked her number, cut ties completely, and closed the door on that toxic relationship for good. Family or not, some people are too poisonous to keep close. That night, as Arya showed off her diploma and posed for pictures with her friends, I stood back for a moment, taking it all in. She was thriving without her aunt's shadow, free to enjoy her achievements without fear of someone trying to tear her down. I thought about the path we had taken, the lies, the betrayal, the broken glass on the counter that had once shattered our peace. And yet, here we were, standing stronger. I realized revenge didn't have to mean destroying someone else. Sometimes the best revenge is rebuilding, living better, and protecting the people you love most. And that's exactly what we had done. What's your take? Was Haley right to shut Laura out for good? Or should family always get another chance no matter what? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to read them. And if these real-life stories interest you, remember to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.